Have you ever considered which iron is best suited for you and your handicap range? Well, in today's video, we're going to be looking at 5 irons of my choice that I think might work best for you, your handicap, and the range of handicaps that we've got out there. Let's take a closer look at the clubs that I've picked. Now, the first category of golfer we're going to be looking at is the plus handicap golfer up to the 1 handicap golfer. Now, these golfers are what I would call the elite level golfer out there. These are players who don't have a lot of wriggle room, do they? They need to get ultimate control when it comes to being on the golf course, and they're generally players that hit the ball pretty well, consistently out the middle, and what they're looking for is a good amount of spin, a good amount of control, and being able to control that ball flight is huge. Now, the club that I've selected for this particular range, and you'll look in lots of tour players' golf bags and you'll find clubs like this in there, is the MB, the muscleback, the bladed iron. And I've selected one of these irons out of a video I've just recently done, which is all about the best blades for 2024. I've selected this one because I think this one works perfectly for those golfers that want ultimate control and generally find the middle of the club. That is the Takomo 301 MB iron. Not a lot of wriggle room when it comes to not hitting the middle of this club. You've got to make sure you're hitting it pretty much in the center, but when you do, it gives you the performance. It gives you the solid look and feel that all of those players are looking to try and get from this particular club. Now, this one comes out at 34 degrees in loft, which is pretty much there or thereabouts for those players that are looking for that ultimate control. From a spin point of view, I'm getting around 7,000 RPMs with this particular club, which you could say is possibly a little bit too much spin. Well, the better player is then going to dial those numbers in with getting a golf ball that's going to maybe just reduce that spin slightly, again, to get the maximum distance but maximum control. Now, for a 7-iron, which is the club that I'm testing in all of the clubs that we've got out here today, 155 to 160 yards on average that I'm getting from this particular iron, and price, £95 per club. So for all those plus handicap golfers up to scratch, up to 1, if you're looking for an iron that's going to give you the control that you're wanting from your game, then definitely give the Takomo 301 MB a try. I don't think you can go too far wrong at £95 per club. The next handicap range is the 2 to 7 handicap. Now, I think the 2 to 7 handicap player is going to be looking to try and get their handicap down. They're looking to try and get to that scratch or better mark. Therefore, they're going to want a set of clubs that are going to look very similar and perform very similar to what those plus to 1 handicap golfers are getting, which is why I've chosen this particular club. Quite possibly the best club that I have tested for 2024, the Callaway Apex CB. This thing is an absolute beauty, and it performs extremely well. The thing that you've got with this one is it looks very similar to an MB. It actually looks better, in my opinion, than what Callaway have produced for their Apex MB. Slightly bigger in its profile than that MB. However, the performance of it, really strong. You've got a little bit more forgiveness here when it comes to the CB, cavity back, with a little bit more of perimeter weighting. So those off-centered strikes are going to still perform similar to what you would get out of the middle. And when we talk about specs and then the performance off the back of those specs, 34 degrees of loft that I'm getting out of the 7-iron in this particular head, which is the same as what I'm getting out of that MB from Takomo. However, from a performance point of view, a little bit lower in that spin, and that's to do with how they've moved weight around the head. And then distance-wise, probably about 2 to 3 yards further than what I'm getting out of that MB. But again, performance-wise, really, really impressive. The only one snag with this particular iron comes out at £185 per club that I'm seeing online. So that's a huge increase than what we're seeing out of the Takomo. But the Takomo is direct to consumer, and therefore the Callaway, you're going to find it more in your pro shops, in your big superstores out there, and you're going to have the opportunity to get fitted maybe a little bit better with this particular club. But that price is a little bit high. However, I think the looks and performance from this particular club in particular, I think it just outshines it a little bit, which is why I've put it in to the category of 2 to 7 handicappers. Go and give this one a go. Next we have the 8 to 15 handicap range. So these are players that are aspiring to get to that category 1 golfer. Can you get down to those low single figures and then start to think about knocking on the door of scratch golf? Now we're moving into hollow body construction, something that's got a little bit of a hollow core inside there, basically a cavity back, but it's got a little bit of a cover over the back there, and most companies generally like to stuff things in there and make it feel a little bit better and help you launch that ball just a little bit more in the air. We're going to start to lose a little bit of loft when it comes into hollow body construction. That's why these companies stick things in there to be able to get that ball up in the air. And the club that I've chosen for this particular category is the Titleist T200 iron. And even though this club is going to perform slightly different than what we're seeing out of that Callaway CB, the looks in this particular club I just think are absolutely stunning. It gives you the confidence that you've got that stability and support behind that club there, but you've also got a look which is very, very similar to that Better Player iron. And performance-wise, exactly kind of what it says on the tin really, getting it to launch up in the air. It's at 30.5 degrees of loft, which is quite strong for a 7 iron. However, I'm getting good amount of spin at around 6.2, 6.3, but my distance now moving up to that 165 to 170 yard category with a 7 iron, which is again pretty impressive. And then from a price point of view, actually pretty similar to what we're seeing out of that Callaway, £180 per iron, and kind of Callaway, TaylorMade and Titleist kind of in that race to see if they can perform the best iron, but ultimately their prices are always going to be very, very similar. But I think this particular club, T200 by Titleist, is going to perform the best for those 8 to 15 handicap golfers. So if you're in the market for a set of irons and you're in that category, make sure you go and test these particular irons. You will not be disappointed. Oh, just a quick one, sorry to interrupt this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you don't know who I am, my name is Dan Hendriksen. I do lots of fittings and reviews for Foremost Golf, one of the biggest buying groups in the country. So I get to test an awful lot of clubs. But with that in mind, let's get back to the testing of the clubs that I've chosen for this video. Now this next club falls in the category from 16 to 28 handicap. We're starting to get clubs now that are going to give us ultimate performance from forgiveness. We want a club that's going to get us out there with a good amount of distance, but ultimately if we don't quite hit it out the middle, we still want it to get towards our target, which is why I've chosen the Ping G430 iron. Now this particular iron, from a profile point of view, is going to give so many golfers in this category all the confidence that they need in order to get that ball out there with some distance, get it out there with a little bit of control, but also get that ball out there nice and high. Now when you look down at the G430 iron to start off with, big profile of clubs, so plenty of confidence, plenty of real estate in order to be able to hit that ball where we want it to go. We've also got a nice thick top line, again giving everybody a little bit of confidence, and I think from the actual tech side of it, we should get this ball up in the air even though the loft is pretty strong. And when I say strong, I mean 29 degrees in loft. And you could say, well, actually, that's ridiculous. How do they make these clubs that strong and still ultimately give us the performance that we want? Well, you got to think about it. The tech that goes into this club is pushing that weight right down to the bottom into the sole of the club, which is helping us get that ball up in the air. You don't particularly want then a club to have that loft of, let's say, 30 to 34 degrees and then push it up even higher. You're going to be up and amongst the clouds, and if it does rain, I'm going to blame you. But from a distance point of view, 170 yards is what I'm getting out of this particular iron, which again is pretty strong, and the spin 5.5 to 6,000 revs, which again is a little bit low, but if you're getting it up in the air and getting a nice steep descent angle, then you're going to start to keep that control there. But for those players that want distance, to get it out there just that little bit further, this G430 might just work really nicely for you. £130 per iron, so a little bit less than what we're seeing out of certainly the Callaway and then into the Titleist. Now, one footnote that I would say to you for those players that are looking at an iron similar to this particular setup is when you've got all this forgiveness and you've got all this perimeter weighting, they're trying to save weight. They're trying to give you as much flex off that face as possible to get it out there as far as possible. I hit one shot in testing that was really high in the face. Ball lost about 2,000 spin, and therefore the ball kind of dipped as it went out there, which is something that I think I need you to think about when you're certainly teeing these things up. Don't tee them up too high because you will lose a little bit of control at the top of that club. However, I think for the range of golfer that are looking for something that's going to give them the help, I think this Ping G430 is a club you certainly need to be testing. And last, but no means least, the 29 plus handicap golfer. Now these are going to be golfers that are either just getting into the game, so just taking up the game, or they're golfers that are maybe just getting a little bit older or have lost their way just a little bit in the game of golf and certainly need some clubs that are going to give them ultimate performance, ultimate support when you're out on the golf course. Therefore, I have selected the 11 hybrid irons. Now when it comes to MOI, moment of inertia, stability, you're not going to go too far wrong than a set of hybrids because you've got that hollow body construction, but it's huge. It's basically like a wood, but ultimately it's an iron. So it's got forgiveness, but it's also going to help you get that ball up in the air. And just like the Takomos, we've got direct to consumer when it comes to the 11 hybrid irons. I actually know the guys that produce this club, and the attention to detail I think is really important. Having visited their facility in the UK, I'm able to see that they do care about their clubs and they care about you as a golfer, which is why they've used their professionalism, their years of experience to produce a club that's only going to help the average golfer. Now you've got 31 degrees of loft on this particular 7-iron, which is actually slightly weaker than what we're seeing out of the Ping and even what we're seeing out of the 7-iron of the Titleist. So with all that tech and the loft of the club, we should see this ball go up in the air pretty quickly. And it did. 160 yards is what I'm getting out of this particular club. However, spin around 7,000 RPMs. Now, if I'm looking for something with a little bit of control and that gets it out there to a decent yardage, you don't really look much further than what we're getting out of this particular club. Remember, if you're looking for something that's going to give you control or for you to hit either fairways and greens, then you need something with spin. It's going to help control that golf ball for you, stop it curving all over the place. And therefore, that's why I really like this club. And also, you got £90 per club, which I don't think is too bad, considering you get a graphite shaft to go in there as well. I'm impressed with these particular clubs, so much so that I've even got my son using them, who's 9 years old. Now, when it comes to choosing the irons that are going to work best for your game, I don't really like categorizing into handicap ranges because there's so many golfers out there that excel in certain areas of their game but then don't do so well, let's say, in putting. They could be a great iron player and a poor putter, or a great iron player and a poor driver, therefore their handicap doesn't reflect really what the iron game is producing. However, this category that I've created for you is just to give you a flavour, give you an idea of clubs that I think you should look to test in certain areas of certain golfers out there. So there's going to be a number of you that are going to put in the comments that you should have seen something else in the bag for that particular category, and I understand, fully understand. However, for the clubs that I've tested, I think these are going to work for so many of you out there in your different categories. And like I said, if you are new to the channel and you like what you're seeing from these videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to comment throughout this video and tell me if you're using any of these clubs. Are you impressed by any of these clubs, or are you using some that you're considering moving on? Now for me personally, I still think that Callaway Apex CB is my club of choice, so I'm going to hit a few more balls and get a bit of practice in. I'll see you again on the next video.